We're talking about the solar eclipse in Sagittarius on January 6th. It's joined Saturn. It's in the nakshatra of Purva Ashada, so check it out. So we have this solar eclipse on January 5th in the US, January 6th in the other parts of the world. And it's going to be pretty intense. You see here, Saturn is very close to this eclipse. You'll see it's happening at about 21 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, this is the first solar eclipse of 2019, and of course, it's going to be, really setting off the new year with a lot of intensity, especially around these Sagittarian themes. Now, if you want to get a free 2019 forecast, I have a link in the description. Go ahead and register for that. It's an in-depth 60-minute, actually it's a little more than 60 minutes on 2019. Of course, I talk about the 3 eclipses and several other things. And you can also get 2019 forecasts for your sign as well, where I talk about how each of the 10 most important shifts will affect your sign as well. So check that out. But so for today, we're going to see how this eclipse in Sagittarius will influence us. Now, of course, we're talking about Vedic astrology, which uses sidereal zodiac, of course, and we not only have it in Sagittarius, but it's in Purva Ashada nakshatra, which is ruled by the god Appas, the god of the ocean. So there's a lot of devotional potential, higher, spiritual devotion that's possible. And this is the section of Sagittarius that has to do with that sort of selfless devotion, and in some ways even kind of blind faith, where we might be even blinded by those things that we believe in. Not necessarily God either. Many of us don't really believe in God. We believe in our, political views and our, preconceptions about why we're here and what all this means. We should have unshakable faith in things that are worthy, that are worth believing in. And so these are going to be big themes for this eclipse. It's going to really, bring into question, what do you really believe? And how much do you put those beliefs into practice? How much are you walking the talk, not just talking the talk? We see that Mercury is also joined as well, and Mercury has to do with ideas, communication, speech, and how much intelligence and discrimination we bring into a situation as well. But the main themes are going to focus around Sagittarius, and it's that fiery quality of Jupiter. Jupiter is the guru and the teacher and the one who really brings a sense of purpose and hope into our life. And that sense of purpose arrives in the form of our teachings, our teachers. It also shows just the things that give us meaning and direction, especially with Sagittarius, because it's that fiery masculine quality of Jupiter. Jupiter also rules Pisces, which is much more emotional and more kind of, wanting to merge with everything. But Sagittarius is about the direction and the purpose and the point and where we're going based on our beliefs. So where are you going based on your beliefs? First, what do you believe? What's your philosophy about life? Again, many times astrology students and astrologers really make the mistake of putting planets in these gross categories. Jupiter, well, it's one of the good ones. It's a great benefic. Of course it is. But Jupiter's nature to give is going to be disposed to give based on what you want to get. Maybe you're focused on money. Maybe your philosophy is, well, who knows what's, I don't know about, God or higher meaning, but I know that I want to be happy and, live a happy life and take care of my kids and take care of my family, and that's what inspires me, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. And in that case, Jupiter will give you the stuff to help you do that. Jupiter is a giver in that regard. But again, sometimes it gives things, but it's not necessarily spiritual because we're not necessarily spiritual. I mean, frankly, how many people do you know are actually spiritual and spiritually aligned that really live in accordance with Dharma and higher purpose and all of that stuff? Most of us are barely getting by with all that stuff. And in that case, Jupiter is still a giver. He's still going to give based on whatever it is that you're following and whatever it is that gives you hope. And again, whatever it is that gives you hope is going to keep your life on track to some extent, but then it's also going to sort of disappoint you at times. It's going to also like abandon you at times. And that's also where Jupiter shows this quality of disappointment. And again, I'm saying these things because Sagittarius is really that sign where Jupiter can also be very sort of disappointing to us, and we'll cycle through some of our, disappointment as it relates to these things in life. So all this is big right now in this eclipse, and we're about to have Ketu move into Sagittarius, where he's going to be for the next couple years, the next year and a half. That's starting in March. And again, I go over all this in the 2019 forecast. You should really check it out. And especially also get it for your sign, because you'll want to know how you're going to be influenced when Rahu and Ketu move signs and go into the Gemini Sagittarius axis. But this eclipse is happening with the Sun and Moon in Sagittarius, even though Ketu is still in Capricorn, right? So this relationship of your life to that sense of purpose and that trajectory of where you're going is very important now. And this eclipse is really bringing all of that out. And you might suffer a crisis of sort of confidence in your direction. Where are you going? There's a saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, which is sort of interesting. People are like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know who I am. I don't know what's the point of my life. Well, then any road will get you there if you don't know where you're going. So it's going to be crucial for the next, for 2019, that you get clear about where you're going. What are your principles? What are you worth? What's worth sacrificing? And in this case, especially, what's worth committing to and focusing on, because we have that Saturn conjunction. Saturn is right on this eclipse, and Saturn is about the consequences of your actions and how time has accumulated, and you have a lot of accumulated tendencies based on, your focus and your commitment and what you're committed to. And so we feel that pressure to get it right. And this eclipse is going to, explode that quality as well and show the need to get clear about what we're committed to. Get clear about our commitments and make sure that they're aligned with higher purpose and that we're really focused on things that are meaningful and not just expedient. Now, the backdrop for this as well is we're also dealing with this Mars-Jupiter exchange. Mars-Jupiter exchange from Pisces and Scorpio. So there's quite a bit of grace in working through these issues right now. The emotional courage to work through these things is pretty high because Jupiter and Mars are exchanging. So that's the good news for sure. But again, it's really an opportunity to sink into a higher purpose and a higher connection to your sense of meaning and purpose in your life and where you're going, and in particular as it relates to a higher cause. Because eventually we're going to be looking for that. Eventually, no matter how much fun you're having or this or that, you need to know what's the meaning, what's the purpose, what's the point of it all. And especially now, again, because Saturn is there, bringing pressure around these issues as well. Now, the nakshatra of Purva Ashada literally means earlier victory, and the early victories come from that care and nurturing of the seeds that we planted in the previous nakshatra of Mula. Again, in Sagittarius, we have 2 1/4 nakshatras, just like every other Rashi. And it's in all the texts, 2 1/4 nakshatras, right? Each Rashi, 9 nakshatra padas. And the first nakshatra is Mula, which is where we plant seeds after pulling out by the roots the previous, dark cycle of Scorpio. We plant the seeds in Mula nakshatra. Then Purva Ashada, we nurture and cultivate those seeds. And the deity Apus, the god of the ocean, which is related to devotion and love, shows our early victories in life. And not just in life, like in your life, how well you were nurtured, says a lot about how much you're going to succeed. Because the next nakshatra, Uttara Ashada, means your later victory. So the early victory is where this eclipse will be, and the early victories have to do with nurturing the seed, protecting the seed. If you just throw the seeds in the ground and leave them alone, nothing's going to happen. You need to give them care and love. Just like everything in your life. Look at the things in your life that you've grown, that have sprouted and turned into something where you've been victorious. They weren't always victorious. It started as a kind of seed, as like a kind of idea. Then you nurtured that idea and you cared for it and you guided it. And then eventually it started to grow, and now it's become something very big. And, something that has become successful. And notice how much hope and purpose and direction and inspiration those things have given you. That's the quality of Sagittarius. So it's very clear that the nakshatras and rashis are the same section of sky. You can see it very clearly when you break down the nakshatras this way. So that sense of hope and purpose that comes from nurturing something that you love and the direction that it gives you. The simplest example is children, of course, right? A seed goes and creates a child, right? But once you have the child, once the child comes, that's not the end of the work. Like, you don't plant the seed and that's the end of the job. That's the beginning of the work. But because you love the child, you love the plant, you love the thing, you nurture it in this nakshatra of Purva Ashada, then it grows into something very powerful, and the later victory is then guaranteed in Uttara Ashada, which is the nakshatra between Sagittarius and Capricorn. So, again, this whole principle of nurturing and being devoted to something is the kind of seed principle, like the sort of catalyst around which this section of Sagittarius will pay great dividends for you. So it's really time to notice, what are you devoted to? And again, often astrologers and students, they get it wrong. They'll say, oh, it's our devotional nature, I'm devoted to God. Most of us aren't devoted to God. We're devoted to money. We're devoted to pleasure. We're devoted to our ego. We're devoted to winning some argument. We're devoted to something that we shouldn't be devoted to. This is the evolutionary process of Sagittarius. This is the pain of not having a good teaching, and the great blessing of having a great teaching and a great guru, and the devotion that we have to our great gurus and to our great teachers. This is why. This is how this works. This is how these things spiral upward. So it's the upward spiral of devotion, and how that devotion gives your life a meaning, a purpose, the suffering that you'll feel is if you don't have a good belief system. So again, if you are, involved, whatever your spiritual path is, hopefully it's something pure and sattvic and elevated, which is the nature of Sagittarius. If it is, then this eclipse could be highly transformative in the next year and a half. Once Rahu and Ketu shift, can be very transformative for you, because we're going to be having eclipses in the Sagittarius Gemini axis, which is very transformative, and especially as it relates to your teachers and your gurus and your higher purpose in life. So that focus and commitment of Saturn is also there. He's been putting it on you since the beginning of 2017, saying, come on, stop wasting time. What inspires you? What's worth committing to? You need to commit to what inspires you, not just what you're trying to avoid, right? And so Mercury here also brings some flexibility, creativity, humor, enjoyment. So overall, it's a good eclipse to start the year, a sense of hope and purpose, a sense of new beginning, and especially as the year begins, we have this eclipse. It's an inspiring Sagittarius. The nodes are going to be in a good position the next year, starting in March. This Rahu in Gemini, Ketu in Sagittarius axis is very spiritualized and very elevated. So this eclipse is sort of like a prelude to that higher wisdom. So again, if you'd like to get the 2019 forecast totally free, just click the link below. You can register for it. It's like an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes. I don't have it as a free YouTube video because, people can opt in, can join the website to get that. And you can also get the 2019 forecast for your sign. So you can refer back to it all year, because there are 10 important shifts that we need to be aware of throughout the year, because they're going to be different if you're a Taurus than if you're a Gemini or whatever it is, than if you're an Aquarius. So either way, check that out. Oh, the other thing is that you can also become a member of the Astrology Training Lab, and I will do the forecast for this eclipse for all 12 signs as well. So you can try that, only 50 cents for 2 weeks, and you get daily forecasts as well as these lunation forecasts. So anyway, check that out, and I hope your eclipse is fruitful. And